They were flipping votes in the computer system or adding votes that did not exist.
I assume that you are getting to the bottom of exactly what Dominion is.
There is much to understand about Smartmatic, which owns Dominion Voting Systems.
The Dominion machine that's as filled with holes as Swiss cheese and was developed to steal elections.
And if that was true, and finally a clear, sharp ruling from a judge about accountability for the people who gave the okay for that garbage to air on Fox News, that leadership may have known or ignored the reality that the ex-president's allegations about Dominion voting systems were false. Yesterday, Judge Eric Davis denied an attempt by Fox News' parent company, Fox Corp, to dismiss a $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit from Dominion because, as he says, its executives may have acted with, quote, actual malice in letting those falsehoods air. The judge writes this: Dominion's arguments, quote, support a reasonable inference that Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch either knew Dominion had not manipulated the election or at least recklessly disregarded the truth when they allegedly caused Fox News to propagate its claims about Dominion. It is the latest win for defamation lawsuits against MAGA media's role in pushing conspiracy theories. That same judge upheld Dominion's lawsuit against Newsmax last week. Just yesterday, a D.C. federal judge upheld Smartmatic's lawsuit against One America News. We're back with our panel. Harry Litman, your reaction.
You know, so much of what's going on yesterday in writ large, it's just a titanic battle in the country between truth and fiction, or truth and lies. And by and large, the courts have done a pretty good job, not perfect, but pretty good. So what you have here is the court saying, look, whether it was for political patronage or money, Murdoch made this decision, and he knew it was false because he told Trump that Trump had lost. So it was brazen in the same way that the other lies we've been seeing, Giuliani and the like, were brazen. And this is the big stage in a lawsuit, Nicole. Typically, after this, Fox can't go to a jury, and it'll be hundreds of millions of dollars anyway. Same thing with the other case, though. It's at a much earlier stage, and they've just said it can proceed, there is jurisdiction. But basically, I see this as just part and parcel of a bigger battle in the country, and you look to the courts finally to be the backstop on what's true and what's false. And they've come through more often than they haven't over these last few years. I'll put it that way.
Luke Broadwater, the counting of votes and the recounting of votes in the case of Georgia, the thrice recounted ballots in the state of Georgia, are a feature of the story that's being told. And it seems to be on the mind of the committee to allow to be introduced into evidence as often as possible the debunking of this conspiracy theory, this lie that's taken hold of the political party that Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger belong to. And I wonder, I mean, yesterday I think it was Gabe Sterling that described the process and how the machine count was held up against the hand count, and you would have caught any error because you had the paper ballot. So if the count didn't count up, you could go through and count. I mean, the country's getting an education in just how secure our election is, which was the claim made by lifelong Republican Chris Krebs. And I wonder if you can just speak to sort of the other side of the committee's mission in terms of debunking these deeply held conspiracies.
Yeah, there's definitely an educational mission here by the committee. I mean, it's one thing for, many viewers and readers to hear that, what Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and others were saying was false. But then to have election officials walk you through it step by step. So you heard claims that there were, tens of thousands of dead voters, and Raffensperger testified that there were 2, and then they eventually found 4. So they, it was 4 people, not 100,000 or whatever the claim was. And they made similar claims about felons who had voted and underage voters, and those were all actually 0. There were no such illegal votes that were cast. And so you heard one by one each of these claims put forward and then debunked. And I even noticed some tweets from some MAGA supporters or former MAGA supporters. I saw Dustin Stockton put on Twitter that he had helped organize these rallies, the Stop the Steal rallies, that he had up until that moment believed the lie that these suitcases full of votes had been pulled out from under a table and added to Joe Biden's tally. And then he heard for the first time that he had been duped, that that the evidence was all false, that those were just normal votes being tabulated. That was the normal process. There was nothing untoward. There was no suitcase. It was all a lie. And I think anybody who really cares to find the truth and does watch these hearings will see that they were duped, and will see how easily most of these lies are debunked. I mean, most of them are absurd on their face, but for the people who did believe them, they now have clear evidence on national television showing that they were false.
And behind every voting machine with a false allegation of its bad conduct is an election worker, a human being, people like Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. And I want to show you Gabe Sterling's testimony about the abuse of an election worker that he describes as the straw that broke the camel's back.
A little after lunch that day, lunchtime, I received a call from the project manager from Dominion Voting Systems, who was audibly shaken. She informed me about a young contractor they had who had been receiving threats from a video had been posted by some QAnon supporters. It was a particular tweet that, for lack of a better word, was a straw that broke the camel's back. Had the young man's name. It was a very unique name. I believe it was a first-generation American. And said, had his name, "You committed treason. May God have mercy on your soul," with a slowly twisting gif of a noose. And for lack of a better word, I lost it. I just got irate.
Charlie, that is the normal human reaction to anyone being falsely accused of election fraud and manipulation of votes. But it was another powerful brick in the wall of the operation Luke's describing, debunking some deeply held conspiracy theories on the right.
No, I want to follow up with what Luke had to say, because, I had the same impression that this was all a reminder yesterday that not only, were Trump's falsehoods, lies, they were easily and frequently debunked lies. And it is interesting to walk through specifically, how absurd they were, but also, again, we've known that Donald Trump is a malevolent and reckless character, but you saw the human cost of this as well. And I have to say, Nicole, I'm really glad that you are highlighting these lawsuits against Fox News and Newsmax and OAN, because this is a very, very big deal. Because this is, the standard for defamation is understandably and reasonably and justifiably very high. But it is also the ultimate check. We ask, what are the consequences for deception, for defamation, for lying? Well, we're about to find out. Yes, free speech means that you're not going to be censored. The government cannot shut you up. But it also means that there are consequences. And the consequences for Fox and these other networks could be absolutely massive. And so, it's very easy to be discouraged about how widespread these lies were, how many people have believed these lies, the consequences of these lies. But these defamation lawsuits are out there, and I think that they will have a tremendous impact on some of the biggest liars in American culture, media, and politics.